So this is the Drupal usability meeting for March the 22nd, 2017. We are at Drupal Dev Days Seville in a meeting room, in person and over Google Hangouts. And we're going to talk about workflows, I guess.
Yeah. So do you want me to go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, let me share my screen. Great, so hopefully you can see yourselves. So I'm going to start off with this issue, which is 276-6957. It's a forward revisions and translation UI can result in forked draft revisions. So I have a actual demo of this. So here is my local site, and if I go to content, I've got a whole bunch of content. So if we go and edit article 1, so this is the French translation of the article, and I can create a new draft and I can publish it. So that all works fine. But if I go over to the English version, I get this error message. It is not possible to create new draft, publish, archive this content, publish or delete the latest revision to allow all workflow transitions. So from the change from last week, I've removed all form fields. So you can now sort of not end up editing all of your content and find out you can't save it. And we get the links here to publish the latest revision or delete the latest revision. We discussed last week listing all the revisions, but it seems like only the latest revision is the one we actually care about. And you can't really revert the latest draft revision. The best thing to do is just to delete it. So publish will take us to that draft revision. This is the same form that I was just on before, where we've got the option to create a draft or publish it. Publishing it will resolve the issue. And the delete link takes us straight to the delete confirmation form to delete the French translation. So that's the... Go ahead.
The deletes it entirely, removes French.
That's right. Well, it deletes that revision, which is a forward revision.
Okay. Which is not clear from this page at all.
Yeah, I guess it's not clear. So this is the scenario if there is no sort of valid option to create a new draft or to publish. But it is possible to get into the scenario where you can create a new draft, but you just can't publish it. So in this case, you still get the form, but you get the message down the bottom saying it's not possible to publish this content, publish or delete the latest for all workflow transitions. So this publish and delete is exactly the same as on the other one, but you can still create new drafts of this. And if we went ahead and created a new draft, it's saved it, and it okay, it weirdly seems to give us now the option to publish, which is potentially wrong.
Oops.
So that probably needs a bit more work and testing, but you can still create a new draft, and that should be a valid option. So yeah, does that work for everyone? Apart from the delete link, which seems a bit confusing what it's actually going to delete. Does it make sense?
I don't know how it was before, but I see this now for the first time, and I'm like, what's happening? So
okay,
maybe
so
some more guidance.
I've got a screenshot of what it was before we had this kind of error message. In fact, there's the screenshot up here. So before we had the error message that just tells you there's an error with no actual actions of what to do about it. And this is the use case where there was no option to save. So it still shows the form. You can go ahead and fill in the form and then find out you can't actually save and you just lost all the work you've done. So the real issue here is that if you did save this content, you would lose a revision in the other language because of how the revisions jump ahead of each other. So we're trying to prevent people from losing content by removing the save buttons and telling them what to do to make sure their content doesn't get lost.
Well, it's definitely better than an error message.
Yeah.
So the ultimate goal eventually is to have per revision default revisions, or per language default revisions.
That would be my preferred solution, yes. But this is an interim solution until we get there. Yeah. Okay.
I saw two views, one without form elements and one with form elements. Were those two different options or were the scenarios?
Yeah, two different scenarios. So it depends on sort of whether the current translation is published or whether it's not published, whether the other translation is published or not. There's a whole host of different scenarios that you can get into that depend on whether you can publish this one or create a new draft of this one or whatever. It's incredibly confusing, and as Roy said down here somewhere, it's head-hurtingly complex, and that's very true. It's a very complex issue, which hopefully we can find a simple solution to.
So there are some transitions that would get your content to lose the translation or not to step over the translation revisions.
Right.
And if only those kind of transitions are available, then you don't have form elements because you only have those kinds of things. You shouldn't do anything. And if there are some kind of transitions available, then you get the form, but only those buttons or options appear as valid, and then you get an error, sort of a message above the button that says some of the transitions are not available because.
Staat niet een flowchart.
Yeah,
there's flowcharts.
There's flowcharts. Yes.
Issue, yeah.
This is how this is invalid and this is valid. And,
Yeah.
I think on the page where we removed all the form elements, we can add more help text. In general, we say, okay, adding a lot of help text, yeah, well, nobody reads it, but if somebody can do something they want, they will read, I think, or try, or yeah. So maybe we can explain it a little more.
I think you do read text, but they're lost.
Yeah, but they're lost, they do read indeed, yeah.
Can you add the screenshot of not showing any form elements to the issue?
Yeah, I will do.
I wasn't aware of that scenario. So,
Tim, can you please show that page again without the form element?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, maybe
A few minutes later, and I missed that one.
Yeah.
Let me find out where that was again. Here.
It's a beautiful sentence. Huh? It's not possible to create new draft, publish, or archive this content.
Yeah, and there's no or in there.
well, none of them are possible.
You know the reason why?
Yeah, it does not say because.
Yeah,
it does not explain.
I would like to know why it is not possible.
Yeah.
Another revision is getting in your way, basically, right? So,
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe you can remove the horizontal rules from here, the lines.
Yeah. I'll.
Yeah, maybe we can just work a bit on the wording there to make it a bit more easier to understand.
Okay. I will do. I'll.
Can we find a generic wording for that that applies to all cases where this will happen? Well, we'll find out, I guess.
You can say that it is not possible to apply any workflow transitions, but it's not necessarily a clear
No,
word
I'm
either.
not sure. No, the explanation of why.
Mhm.
Is it always that one case where another revision is
In the way.
in the way?
Yeah. That's always the reason.
Okay.
Can't we just say that it is not possible to edit this?
One at a time. Joseph?
Sorry, I was just saying, maybe you can just say that it is not possible to save or edit this content this time because other revision is in a way. So maybe instead of telling all of these transitions, we can just say that edit this content.
True.
Yeah.
I have just another idea because it still is an experimental module where by definition we say it's not really finished. So could we just add the link to the issue that is causing this problem? That people would know that this is not something they have broken or they have messed up, but that there is work going on in this.
Yeah.
Question about whether that makes sense for experimental modules in general.
I think we're in the business of stabilizing this one.
Okay.
And as a general principle, I think we shouldn't be making excuses, or we should just do as is. This is the best we have right now, and that's what we have.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay.
Would the view link also help here? So that you just can
You what?
the revision that's in the way. What was actually the revision?
So so I think both publish and delete leads to acting on the revision that's in your way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But we noticed that the delete link loses too much context of what
Right.
what will happen.
So deletes. It says it's going to delete the French translation, which
Entirely. Yes.
yeah, it says it will delete it entirely, but it should just delete the latest revision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe they shouldn't be at the same time. I mean, one of them is fully dangerous. The other is just publishing. So probably one could be a button and the other one could be just a typical link for all of them. I don't know, or at least put them in different sentences.
Are publishing and or deleting always the two ways to fix this?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. That's why I was asking. Do you maybe want to just review it?
We established that another language revision is the cause for getting in the way, is publishing and or deleting always the fix?
Yes.
Other than deleting the whole node entirely, yes.
Yeah.
It's
Or
like
reinstall.
flipping the table is like, leave me alone.
Also,
That's an option, yeah.
Yes. Actually, that didn't fix.
And the moment that you're here, you usually know what's causing this problem. I mean, you probably would like to have this diff where you have the, you probably would like to see what's exactly undecided and not deciding who publish or deleting it without seeing what's going on. Yeah, the content itself.
So is it also a possibility that you have two drafts in the way and not just one of them? I think
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
also possible.
That could be possible. So you could have a language with 2, 3, 4 drafts in front of this published one.
Because in that case, you need to publish or delete all of them one by one first.
Well, you could just publish the latest one, and that will solve the issue, which is what this publish link goes to, is the latest revision. You publish that and you're done. If you delete the latest revision, then the one before that will become the latest revision, and that will still cause the issue. So you'll have to go through and delete every one of the forward revisions. So it could be a case that you go to delete the latest one, come back to edit this, and you'll still get the issue because there's more than one.
But when you publish it, is it so? If you have a forward revision in French and Spanish, then you publish the French.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the Spanish? It's still in the way.
No, it gets copied to the latest default revision. So it wouldn't cause any issues then.
So it's published even though you didn't want to publish it. You published the French. That has the effect that you did not intend to happen.
No, it won't ever publish something that shouldn't be published. It will stay as draft, but it will just become the latest default revision, just a draft default.
But are you asking about 2 translations that are ahead?
Yes.
And you fix only
One
the
of
French
them.
one?
Yeah.
What happens to the Spanish translation that is also still ahead?
So you can only have one translation that's ahead. That's what this patch will prevent you from doing. So yeah, you can only have one translation ahead, and then once you publish that latest revision becomes the default, and all the other translations get their latest revision copied to the default as well, and
then you
so
can have a
the issue is solved because the latest revision is the default revision. You only ever get into this problem if the latest revision is not the default revision.
Yeah.
So instead of linking delete and go to the delete confirmation, should we maybe link to revisions tab?
Yeah, that might be an option. So on the revisions tab, sorry, we want the revisions tab for the other language. So on the other language, we get here current revision, which is the default, and we have the forward revision here. So we can either set as current revision, which will kind of publish it, but it won't be published. It will just be or we can delete it. So this delete link is where the other delete link goes to.
And set as current revision, is that the fix?
Sorry? Current revision is the default revision.
So if you would, the error message that you had that had a link on publish and a link on delete, could that just have a single link that goes to this revision page? Where you can either set it as default or delete?
No, because setting as the current revision won't publish it. It will just set it as the current revision. So it will become the default revision, but unpublished. So you will basically unpublish your translation.
So we need to make correction here. Set as current revision and publish.
Let's make sure we document the problem in the issue and come up with a solution. Not in this hour. I think we at least this group now has a relatively clear picture of what we need to fix.
As clear as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we look at the issue.
Okay.
Related to, because I checked all the experimental modules, and most of them don't actually have a help text, or only have the very short help text, but not the different use cases explained. So we need to start working on them as well. Because otherwise people end up with this really knowing anything.
Is there a stabilize all the workflow things meta?
Yes, there is. I will find the issue and post it into Slack after this call.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's move on to the next issue that I've got. So this is, let's go for this one. So this is the checkbox instead of a drop button issue, which is 2068063. So here we're basically looking to remove the drop button and we have a number of potential solutions. So we're looking at replacing the drop button with a published checkbox. So I've got an example of this in my entity 3. So here we have a published checkbox. This shows that the content is published, and I can untick it and save to unpublish my content. So it's now unpublished. I go back in and the issue is unpublished. So this has had quite a lot of activity over the last couple of days on this issue. People are saying, should we have this checkbox? Is it the right way forward? Should we have more buttons? What should we do? When I talked about this in last week's call, there was discussion that I didn't have a demoable version. So really, I just wanted to demo, here is my checkbox, but the issue's kind of unfolded since then. So we probably need a bit more discussion about, do we want this checkbox? Is it the best way forward? It's what we had in Drupal 6. So are we going back to the old ways? My personal new idea is multiple buttons, but the buttons depend on the state that you're currently in. So I'm thinking if you create new content, you should have 2 buttons, one called Publish and one called Create Draft or Save Draft. And then if you're editing some published content, you have 2 buttons. One is to just save, and it will just save in the same state as it was before. Or you have Unpublish, which will save it and unpublish it. But if you're editing unpublished content, then you have a button to publish and a button to save, and the save will just save it again as unpublished. And we should embellish those buttons with a clearer idea of whether it is published or not currently. So instead of having it up here, which only appears in the 7 theme, then maybe we put that down here somewhere and make it more clear. Down by the buttons, sorry, round by the save buttons, we say current state is published, or this content is currently published. Do you want to unpublish or just save? So we have a lot more context around the buttons, and
yeah, now there's this disconnect between the top of the sidebar and the button checkbox. The checkbox around the button is like, okay.
Yeah. And the thing that with this sidebar is the sidebar's only in 7 theme, and this not published or published thing is hard coded in 7.theme as a form alter. So if you use a different theme, then that's gone. We have no control over that. So I think we need something down here with the buttons, and we need to group the buttons with some context.
Also, for the rest of the entity types, they don't have the sidebar, so
right,
that's another problem.
So
taxonomy terms, or
let's see if
whatever.
I can. Yeah, there's nothing else with the save button. The only other thing with save buttons is comments.
So are you moving your? So we are still seeing a screen. We're not seeing your mouse moving at all. Well, now we are. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we're back. So yeah, what does everyone think about the publish checkbox and save buttons?
One other thing to realize is that this is the situation without workflow or content moderation. So this is the basically core defaults, which only provides this save and you have to make of saving and then publish and unpublish work. It's not like core itself would provide another state like draft or archived or whatever. So it's basically work combining those 2 states, right? Saving and publishing.
It's also further complicated if you have translation, right? Because the translation will add more text to the buttons and make them look more ugly.
Very wordy,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we could move the translation text out of the buttons if we add more context around the buttons. Then we could put the translation text in there.
I use that as
That's WordPress.
yeah.
And that's how they solve here this thing. I mean, they have different status here.
Mm-hmm.
They clearly say status, they are exactly, they have all this thing grouped under publish.
Mm-hmm.
They have, actually I don't use WordPress, don't take that, but I have it installed. So just to make it clear.
No problem.
No, seriously. They have here the different status they can have. They have here if it can be public or private, and they have here the publish or not public.
Yes.
So if we change it for private, they sometimes change this text here from save or date or different text that it's what I was testing with some friends. It confused them, but having all related to publishing here together was really useful because they didn't learn.
I'm actually quite jealous about it.
Yeah,
So fancy widgets.
and they have here this status
Mm-hmm.
all together with a title that clearly says that. I don't know for sure if that's best, but at least we have another idea.
Yeah, that's like a whole set of widgets to build if we are going
We don't need
towards
all
that.
of them, but at least they have a title
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that if we add the checkbox, we will need the title.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to show the first status.
If you remember, some time ago, I'm sharing my screen now. Some time ago, I created this option, and it very similarly had the publishing settings in the right. And so I didn't have a checkbox here, but I had this moderation drop down there where you could say published, unpublished, or anything else there is, and then just save it.
You collapse these publishing settings, you use the same.
Maybe
I don't think he's making it possible to collapse data. There's no icon to collapse, so that's not.
Yeah, not publishing settings, everything else, but not publishing settings.
I think having the whole status as published, unpublished, and possibly also moderation stages together in the for content types, we have all the metadata in the right, and moving the published one out of there. Still has this, that's the odd one out, that is in the wrong place somehow.
now or would be?
It would be, but it's actually also the place where you see it, because you don't look at all the metadata. So
Yeah.
I'm still a bit split out.
Yeah, my argument for moving it to the left, let's say, is that you can publish your content just by basically ignoring the left-hand side. And now you have to rely on information in the right-hand side to be sure where you are.
The one thing I like about this is that there's a save button on the top of the page, because often we have node forms with so many fields, and they only change the title, for example, to scroll, there's a save button.
Okay, so that's the someone specific
Yes,
Probably.
version.
Okay.
But this would go down at the bottom for everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, the goal was to keep the left side just clean for editing the content itself, and all of the other settings would be Right.
I really think that we shouldn't decide it like
That's for sure.
because with all used to Drupal, I saw that they didn't know what to do. But the ones that were used to Drupal, WordPress, the WordPress way of showing everything was promoting. So I think we shouldn't really decide, and we should just not. I don't know
And
how.
the one thing we do want to take account is that if you enable moderation, workflow states, etc., then there will be more states and maybe more options. That should still happen in the same widget, right? So
yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere in how this initially evolved, there was a proposal to, without workflow, we'd have a publish checkbox on the left-hand side and with, or vice versa. But then there would be two places that you could potentially find what would to manage your publish settings. So that's at least a principle. Yeah. I don't know, man. Who can make a call here on what we should do? Sorry, James.
So I think the checkbox, we agreed that the checkbox is good. Did we? No, we did not.
I think for this version without that extra widgets brought in by workflow and moderation, together with the very awkward labels we would get together with land multilingual, and even the wording. I mean, that was a pretty big bike shed for the drop button to get the wording right.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards the checkbox right now. Yeah.
It looks so lonely.
That's fine.
That's why it's got a little border above it, so it's protected.
Or at least add some labels on the top.
So we want to make a decision here to basically help workflow do their stabilizing.
Yeah.
It's still at the beginning of 8.4. We can always iterate and improve. We definitely want to, because with workflow and moderation states, we are now also making the minimal viable change where we add a regular select list for different states, like save as draft or needs review or whatever. And we want to improve that as well by maybe making it a button bar where you can basically click which state you want to.
So the select box is apparently the same that WordPress does, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's not that. It's not like we are making something very bad.
I think for now, having a checkbox that is clear and straightforward and doesn't come with extra baggage that we might need to remove later, I would say for now, simply go with that simple checkbox. And if it's lonely, it means it's visible as well. So don't have to build a whole garden around it.
Exactly. With the one extra requirement to show the current state with the checkbox. Or
if the state is only published or unpublished, then the checkbox basically shows
communicates that.
Yeah, maybe untick.
Well, once you untick it, how do you know? No, yeah, you're right. Yes, because you're only interested in what's going to happen when you save it. So it doesn't really matter what it was before or it published, does it?
I don't know, does it add clarity if we say what the state was before? Because as you said, if you untick the box and you go away, get a coffee, and you come back, and then you think, oh, was this unpublished or was it published? And what am I doing here? So it does add clarity. In 7, we still got that in the right sidebar at the top. But we could move it from that sidebar and put it down by the checkbox.
Whether it was published or unpublished. When you look at the list of revisions, can you see when it got published?
No, when you look at lists of revisions, you can see when that revision was created, but you don't know whether the revision was published or not.
But I think it's very much related. People go and get a cup of coffee before they hit the save button. So, but still, you know whether you have published content or not.
Okay, and that would be an additional change. It would not change the decision to go for the checkbox.
Yeah.
And we already had displayed the current status in 7, so I mean, we will need to do something about it. That it's at different places. So we either want to remove it entirely, or we want to just move it with the widget, I think.
So how does it then work now with your different translations?
So I think it just makes the buttons wider for translations. So
Yeah.
This translation, yeah,
Okay. Like we already saw.
the previous demo, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an important argument with checkbox.
yeah,
Having 2 of those next to each other.
yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, so
Well,
the more,
trying to be helpful.
the more buttons you have, the more text.
We'll update the issue and communicate our decision to move ahead with the checkbox.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let me share my screen again, and I can talk through my next issue. Okay, so this one is selecting of entity types on the workflows page. So it's issue 2843-083, and I do have a demo of it. So if we go into configuration, down to workflows, and we get a list of all our workflows, we can edit the editorial workflow, and we get a list of our states, of our transitions, and entity types.
So
We can see.
So the entity types is new because there was nothing before.
Yeah, previously you had to go into structure and then content types and then manage that content type. And then there was a tab here, manage moderation, to manage moderation. So it's incredibly convoluted and hidden. It makes a lot more sense to be in the workflow itself. So here it shows that we currently have the article content type selected for this editorial workflow. And we can go in and change that. So we click add and remove content types, and we can untick article and save that, and then it's nothing selected. We can add basic page, and we get basic page selected. We can go in and add both of them, and we get article and basic page selected. We can even add it to custom blocks. So yeah, a much more straightforward way of selecting entity types. I'm not sure if you remember the demo from last week. In this field set, we just had a huge list of checkboxes.
There's a screenshot of it in the issue, yeah.
And the concern with that is if you had 20 content types for nodes and 20 content type for blocks, you're going to have 40 checkboxes in your list. So this is a much better solution, having them in a modal and showing the state down here. So yeah, I hope everyone agrees that it's a good way forward. A couple of concerns that I'd like to raise before we start discussion is this the right name for the button? Then at the top of the modal, should we give a bit more context around this is you're editing the custom block content types? And then one of the latest additions I added is this cancel button. Is it clear that cancel just does nothing? And then here, save. The save button does actually save. So you untick that and click save, and that's it saved. You don't need to click this save button. Is that clear? Is that how it should work? Should it be more like views, where in views this is like an add button? So you click add and it doesn't actually save, and you get a little asterisk or something to say this is not actually saved. Yeah, how should it work?
First of all, we see a button that says add and remove. I don't think we have any buttons that have that kind of wording. I would expect something like select.
Okay.
And even that whole section is entity types. So type doesn't really work if you, for example, also have blocks in there. I can only see that the wording might be confusing. I can't think of much better at the moment, but it can be more generic.
Also, your table has a type header here, and it also has a type header in the modal. So this is a type, and that is a type, and they are different types of things.
Yeah, different types of type.
Yeah, there's an entity type, and that's a bundle type, or it's a bundle basically, but you say so. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
General agreement not using entity because it's too confusing. If you make an issue for that, I can think of wording that might be more consistent with other wordings we have.
I think like you just say applies to or something like, yeah.
So there's the entity types header or label we use here. Normally we don't use verbs there, I think, but I want to communicate assign.
Yeah, applies to or assign to or
assign this workflow to.
Or enable workflow for or something.
Yeah. And how does the save button in the modal work? Well, you came up with the modal.
If it saves,
So,
it should save, and if it doesn't save, it should be applied, because that's what we use in other places when it doesn't, when it still needs another save afterwards.
Yeah.
if you remember in my I'm sharing my screen, this was the prototype for that. So there was refine, and then the model was refine selection, and there you just add that. And also there was selecting entity types, and the table didn't have that, but it had, for example, the description, but it, maybe we don't really need to have that type and type again there.
Yeah, I did try and add description, but I found out that entity types don't have a description. So I couldn't add description.
I see.
Refine, by the way, would only work if you have nothing ticked, everything is selected. Only then can you use refine.
So, sorry, what was that? If you have nothing.
If you want to use the word refine, then you're refining it from something that has selected everything beforehand. So that's what you can only use if nothing is ticked, then everything is chosen.
No, but I think the idea was to check the box for all content types, which would give you the refine button too.
Okay,
Which is...
Yeah, it was like this. So you can select the whole content. Or you can refine that and just select some of these.
Selected node, and that's because you selected all node types. You get a refine.
That's when you get a refine. To refine further, see what all nodes.
That seems to be one click too many.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but it illustrates the problem, right? We have multiple types, and within those types, we have types.
Subtypes, yes.
I would sit down and see what kind of wording we use in other modules and see whether I can come up with a proposal for that.
So for the model, I agree that it needs a title that explains what are the things that you are subtypes. What are the things that you're editing the subtypes of?
Okay.
And this again, that it has the same type header that and it's a select all checkbox. Select all checkbox was also puzzling for me at first. It makes it look like you're picking the type, but you're picking everything.
Right.
But it may be just an initial confusion. And then my other confusion is that so if you exit the modal, then you have a page which has buttons that open new pages and it has buttons that open modals.
Yeah.
And all of those pages actually save, so that's at least good, because the expectation, like if you hit edit on a transition, you get a different page and not a modal. If you have at least saves consistently, so that's consistent, that's good. But it may be confusing that some of the same looking buttons work differently than some of the other same looking buttons.
Yeah. Well, we could have a follow-up to move these edit buttons to be modals.
So that may be nice.
I think it's okay to use modals here. If you click a box, then that's what you must do.
Yeah.
Or you can return. That's the modal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of had it like that.
Yeah.
For both transitions and moderation states.
Yeah.
So that would be consistent in terms of behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would not be consistent with the rest of the UI where you have the same drop buttons and they open different pages, but at least here it would be consistent.
Right.
Maybe
the
we
other
don't,
part is
maybe
that
we
we
make it
use them for the type, and we use a separate page, and that would be consistent with other pages and within itself as well. I don't know how much of a pain that is to select the bundles on a separate page.
Well, selecting, if we open in a new tab, that's a new page.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, yes.
So
if
it's
you've
better
got
to keep it on the same page.
Does the model work properly if you have the menu bar on the side? Because like in views, it's continuously overlapping. Okay, it works.
It's a stock modeling course.
Yeah.
So stock.
Do we need the?
Depends on how many you have.
Well, it's currently there and it just has a wrong wording. You just change the type to select all.
I probably need to do a screenshot or something with 20 content types just to show.
Yeah,
that it makes sense. Then it gets scrolling and things like that.
Okay, leave it.
Okay.
I think the wording review, etc., should happen in the issue itself. No need to make a separate one, I think.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
we're refining what's there.
Okay. Great.
Joseph, what's this? I think last week we discussed this as well, and I suggested let's see some wireframes for different options for this. Do you know how you came to this decision to use this one? Did you explore alternative versions, or I don't know if Joseph designed it?
For models?
Yeah, with the add remove.
Yes, there were some options. Let me find it. But it was a few months ago, and I think we discussed this
last week.
Yeah. After the call last week, we did have a talk about the different options, and we decided that it's just as much work to do any sort of MVP option. We might as well go for the original option of the modal.
Yep.
Sure. Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
And we've looked at designs for this a couple months back. Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Different options.
I'm trying to find it now, but
No, it's okay.
That's fine. Yeah. We can look back on the YouTube recordings and figure it out.
All right.
So any other issue?
No, I think that's it from me. So it's been really useful. Thanks.
Welcome.
Sure.
We have some issues to update, and then we'll do that. Okay.
Great.
Glad we could help. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.